but you are a boomer. She said, no, 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 I'm Gen X. So we had
Oh,
that argument last night. But the fact is,
What is,
it's it's Sunday. And it's an interesting Sunday because we just got over Helene. I mean, the president didn't bring any paper towels, so Pinellas is still underwater. And now all of a sudden, I get a email from my friend Andy Johnson who says, "Guess what? Milton is coming, and it is bearing straight down."
like, have you seen my stapler?
Ah,
Office Space? Come on, guys.
I know Office Space. Yeah, the red stapler, the one that doesn't bench up the image. But the fact is, we have a storm that's coming up, and believe it or not, it's going to punch itself right into the Tampa Bay area, go across the strait through Orlando, and it's going to be evacuated out of Daytona Beach probably, and take half the beach with it, like it did in 2015. So we are preparing, and we are also preparing to get into the rotation. Hit the music. In my soul, you're a corner in my heart.
That was good this time. I was ready.
Oh, that was fantastic. Florida has this habit of mixing politics and weather. For some odd reason, we decided to have the Republican convention over here in 2012 as Hurricane Isaac was flying through.
That's right.
And I was thinking to myself, well, that's one way to get rid of half of the Republican Party. But no, it didn't happen that way. By the way, my first convention, Republican convention in Detroit in 1980. It was a lot of fun.
Interesting.
But that's how I get my toe dipped into politics. But we are in the middle of a hurricane called the 2024 election, and it is absolutely wild. And I cannot believe that we actually have people who are posting things saying that the Democrats are now manipulating weather. And there's this serenity prayer which says, God bless me the understanding to deal with things I can't deal with, and the strength to deal with things I can.
Absolutely.
We can't change hurricanes, dudes. Okay, we have no control. And you guys who think that climate change is not real, but we can change hurricanes, are really messed up. But here's somebody who can change things, and this is our special guest for today. So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Gary Stein. I'm the political director here for Suncoast Normal and our Master of Business Administration. Sound good? Okay. And to my right,
you never hear that.
I talked over it, I suppose. And to my left, your right, is our deputy director and Master of Business Administration, Carlos Angel Armida. And directly below him, somebody who's actually way above him in so many ways, is our Democratic leader here in Florida, Nikki Freed. Nikki, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Gary. But to your point, like, we got another hurricane out there. A hurricane that is going to. I mean, I was just in Pinellas yesterday, and seeing all the devastation of all of those people that, on the coastal areas, and the floodings and the debris, and just the despair of so many people right now. They're tired. That they are truly tired. And now here we've got another hurricane. That we keep praying. That's how we do things. We pray. And in Ron DeSantis's world, we knock on wood and hope that hurricanes don't hit us. But here we are. Climate is changing, and we are in an insurance crisis that is just going to explode even more so after this next hurricane. And hello, everybody.
From what I can see right now, instead of having a get out the vote campaign and knocking on doors, it's like knocking on wood. I don't know what they're doing in regards to their get out the vote campaign, but I know you've had a lot of input as to how the mechanisms have been going on in Florida and how we're actually getting out the vote. And we don't go out on those doors, and we don't automatically say vote for the Democrats. We say register to vote. Mm-hmm. And then we say, and by the way, this is brought to you by the Democratic Party, who says this. Is that working?
Well, yeah, so just from the democratic ecosystem here in the state of Florida, when I took over, we had no operations, we had no door knocking, we had no canvassing, phone banking, interaction with voters, even voter registration. And so we have really kind of transformed the Democratic Party in the last 2 years. And what we have seen this year alone, we have in the democratic ecosystem that's between the Harris campaign, the Florida Democratic Party, our allies on the ground, we have hit over 1.7 million doors this year. That is unprecedented across the state of Florida. I do not think that the Democratic Party has ever done that in the history of the Florida Democrats. And on top of that, it's another 8 million phone calls, 13 million text messages. We have 154,000 volunteers across the state of Florida, again, between the Florida Democratic Party, the Harris campaign, our candidates that are on the ground. We filled every single House, Senate, and congressional seat. First time that has been done by the Florida Democratic Party in over 30 years. The Republican has never done that. So we have built an army on the ground, giving people options of who to vote for on this ballot, and making sure we're talking about the issues, Gary, because I'm watching what the Republicans are doing. That they are, first of all, they are not knocking on doors. There is no ground operation. There is no Trump headquarters here. There's no state director. There's no volunteers. There is no Trump apparatus at all in the state of
Really?
Florida. And when you do see the Republicans out there, what are they doing? They're yelling at people. They're nasty rhetoric. And then I saw today, I don't know if this is a different conversation, but today I saw that Ron DeSantis is threatening news stations for airing Amendment 4 ads. We have lost our minds here. So it's an interesting time to be in the state of Florida, and it's why it's so important to make sure that you register to vote by tomorrow, and then participate in this upcoming election.
I did notice that True Leave is suing various television stations for airing anti-3 campaign ads. Uh, don't know if that really works that well, considering how well our system works as far as suing people. You used to be a lawyer, you probably still are. And suing someone takes a little bit of time, not
Yep.
the 30 days that we're talking about right here. But what I find interesting is that you have said, and this is, since I've been here in Florida, we've always had a lot of candidates come here during the elections because we've always been one of the big swing states. Then all of a sudden we started becoming more and more red. And now all of a sudden they're saying Florida is in play. So we have districts that have been red for a while, but we got Tom Keene to start the motion to say we can flip these districts and go from one to the other. What do you see? How many campaigns do you see out there that can be flipped?
I'm crisscrossing the state. For those who know anything about me, I've actually been crisscrossing our state nonstop for 6 years, since 2018. So I have seen it all. I have seen the best and the worst in campaigns. And we have a 67 county plan and a strategy. We're seeing competitive supervisors of elections campaigns in Monroe. We are seeing competitive Senate races in the Panhandle. I was again in Pinellas County. We've got a lot of House seats that are very competitive. I was in Volusia County yesterday, and talking to some of our Volusia County down ballot candidates, including one woman who is running against the House member who pushed for the 6-week abortion ban. And in an R+6 seat, the internal polling shows that it's almost tied. So we are seeing this type of excitement and energy. I have said for the last year that if any R+7 or below seat is going to be competitive this year, because Democrats are coming out to the polls in record numbers in energy and excitement. Independents, which are about 1/3 of our state right now, are breaking for Democrats. That's how we got Tom Keene in House District 35 earlier part of this year. It's how we got Donna Deegan last year in Jacksonville. They are flipping for Democrats 60 to 70%. And there is a huge chunk of Republicans right now in the state of Florida that are tired of Donald Trump, that are tired of the MAGA extremism. They're tired of the hypocrisy, the divisiveness, the hatred. And if 10% of them either stay home, undervote at the top of the ticket, or certainly a vote for Kamala Harris and for Debbie Mercoselle Powell. Those are real opportunities for us to not only finally retire Rick Scott, who we know has been horrific on our issue on cannabis, and then we also are able to finally take out Donald Trump and the MAGA extremism across the state and across the country and elect Kamala Harris. So we really are very competitive in every part of this county, even some of the red areas. We are seeing mobilization efforts like we have not seen probably in 30 years in the Democrats.
It sounds to me that the Republican Party just kind of got lazy. Like they got into power, they got a big fucking cocky head. They started sending immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. They did all this weird shit. They're saying everything, and now they're making people who vote Republican feel like they're making them look bad. You
Yeah.
know? So go ahead.
Yeah, no, Carlos, I 110% agree with you. And I've been saying this since 2022 that Ron DeSantis did not win by 19 points. Like, for everybody across the state and across the country who are listening to this podcast and things that I've been consistently saying, Democrats stayed home in 22. We had 1 million Democrats that did not vote in the November 2022 governor's race. And if 1 million Democrats stayed home, imagine how many left-leaning independents stayed home. DeSantis's numbers were a win of 1.6 million. There's your numbers. And instead of somebody saying, hey, Ron, this was not yearly a 19-point win and an invalidation of all your energy, instead they pumped up his ego and said, you're going to be a president one day. And it's like kind of like to your little kids, you're going to be president one day, you can do it. And so what he did was he then took our state into such an extreme direction, Martha's Vineyard, to book banning, to removing people from office, to a 6-week abortion ban, to the tax on our higher education system. And it just goes on and on and on. And the pendulum is swinging back. I mean, look what he was trying doing with the state lands this year, trying to sell off our state lands for pickleball courts.
Okay.
And the entire state revolted against him. He's lost his juice in our state. The culture wars are coming to an end, but it didn't have to get this extreme if somebody would have actually had a gut check and a reality check with Ron DeSantis after November of 22.
Now, I understand. I'm sorry, Gary. I'll give you time to ask some questions.
Go ahead now. Go ahead.
But I understand you saying that Democrats didn't show up to the polls in 22, and which is a shame because you would have been governor. But but I'm curious. There's the Republican Party of Florida just really looking like crap. That's one reason why Democrats are going to come out to the polls. What about the constitutional amendments? What about abortion being on the ballot? What about cannabis being on the ballot? Like, is that going to bring a lot of people out?
Yeah, I think that both, and I think they both hit different sectors of our demographics. One, Amendment 4 impacts all of us, not just women. As I keep saying, it takes two to tango. We're all in this boat together, and it's not just choice, and certainly choice is a very big part of the conversation, but it is healthcare. Hearing the horrific stories of so many families that are sitting in emergency rooms not being able to get the health care that they need, the horrific stories that we're seeing out of Georgia of women dying because of lack of care. And Gary, I know that you know this too. The fact is that doctors are scared of performing these procedures because they're afraid of prosecution. So this is all really kind of allowing people to understand what is happening here in the state of Florida, that we are under the threat of losing our freedoms and losing our democracy. And so people are excited about coming out and voting for putting reproductive health care back into the Constitution. And that is a Democrat, Republican, and independent issue. It cross sections across the board. And then, of course, you've got Amendment 3, finally allowing us to legalize cannabis and stop this war on cannabis that should have never started 50 plus years ago. And now you've got a different demographic that cares about this issue. One, you have a lot of, youth that are seeing, cannabis as a freedom issue, that are choosing to use cannabis products over alcohol and other types of drugs, and other types of recreational activities. And they want this freedom. And they're tired of it. And of course, that's how I won in 2018, getting the crossover of this libertarian issue that you talk to. I don't care, you go out to the rural parts of our state, and what do they talk about? They want to keep their guns and they want to keep their weed. This is something that really, truly crosses over from Democrat, Republican, and independent. And the fact that Republicans have been that stopgap of moving forward legislation to legalize cannabis, and of course, putting in legislation that restricts abortion access. So both of these these issues are libertarian issues. Mind your damn business. Get out of my bedroom. Get out of my evening activities. And time to finally go back to a true free state of Florida where I have opportunities to make decisions about my own body and what I put into my own body. And so I think that these two issues are going to get people out and to recognize you can't vote for Republicans and vote for these amendments at the same time.
Okay, I sorry, Gary. I got one more thing to ask Nikki. I'm sorry.
Oh no, if you're on a roll, go ahead with it, Lou.
No, so okay, so you know me from you put together this hemp industry in the state, and I went ahead and I opened this store and I did all these great things in my store and all that stuff. That's Chillum doesn't matter right now. What matters is the whole hemp industry. You know that the past 2 years, there's been a Republican-led initiative to end the hemp industry in the state. And then all of a sudden something happened where Ron DeSantis was like, we can't have legal marijuana. And it's like, the hemp people are my friends now, right? It's like, I'll veto this bill. Just fucking attack the weed people, right? What is going on?
I don't think we have enough time in the show to talk about the civil war that is happening between the hemp industry and the marijuana industry. But yeah, it's interesting bedfellows that have come into play. And I think that,
this should be like a major concern for you, though, because I mean, this is your baby, right? Like,
this is
something that you
this
created.
is. I mean, in the 3 years that after we legalized hemp in the state of Florida, and I predicted it. For those who remember on my campaign trail, I talked about legalization of hemp, and I talked about this being a $20 to $30 billion industry in 5 to 10 years. And that's exactly what's happened. It is now a $15 billion industry, so I'm not far off. 1.4 billion dollars worth of salaries, 22,000 small businesses, 190,000 jobs. We have created true free market here in the state. Now, granted, there needs to be better regulations. I touted that for many years as Commissioner of Agriculture. We needed to make sure that we've got age requirements, QR codes, testing requirements. There's still things that we need to make sure that it is still a safe product for consumers. But what I think happened is multi-pronged. One, the industry was just too big for DeSantis to actually take out. Like, he would have killed 190,000 jobs. And so I think that he saw, and a lot of them are Republican jobs and Republican small businesses that were coming to him and saying, wait a second.
Yeah.
The other thing is you had a lot of veterans that were going to DeSantis saying, this is our opportunity to not have to go onto a registry, the MMTC registry, and it gives you an opportunity to not be on the registry and still access and purchase of firearms, and giving a lot of vets, access to medicine that they didn't want to go through the all the other things that potentially are prescribed to them and dealing with some of their mental health issues. And so that was one, two, and the third was that he got to raise money, got to use the hemp industry to raise dollars. And so it's an interesting conversation, but I think that this is something that when it passes in November, that we all collectively have to come together and figure out how to regulate this industry as a totality, making sure the hemp industry can participate in the legal cannabis space, breaking up vertical integration, allowing small businesses to participate, allowing hemp growers to sell to the MMTCs, more licenses. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do together to make sure that we are truly creating a green industry for all consumers, all entrepreneurs, farmers, and those that want to participate in every part of the chain of supply chain.
Well, here's the thing I'm concerned about, and hopefully you can answer this question for me. There is amendments that are ballot initiatives, and then there's legislative action that we have to deal with at the same time. Now, Amendment 3, by my view, is not perfect. It's got a lot of issues, but I do believe that we can tackle them legislatively, provided we have the right people in the legislature in the first place. And I think the issue in regards to the hemp industry can be solved along the same lines. Now, you've been in the belly of the beast. You've had your office right there in the Capitol. And so can you tell us, is it possible that Amendment 3 will make it easier for us to save the hemp industry than without it? Because we know damn well that even though the honeymoon was great for a while with the kumbaya between the DeSantis and the hemp industry, it'll end as soon as that election is over.
Yeah, that bill is going to come back. Like,
sure.
Okay. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, the bill's going to come back, and because it is when he no longer that's how DeSantis and the rest of Republicans operate. That once your usage for them is over, then they come after you. But I do think that, and this is also why it's really important to vote for Democrats. Because we know that Democrats are going to go in there, they're going to fight for open access, they're going to fight for making sure that we're breaking up the vertical integration. They're going to go in and they're going to fight to make sure that everybody has a fair shake at participating in this market. But yeah, we're going to see it coming back. Why? Because Wilton Simpson wants to destroy the hemp industry. Take a step back for a second. The Commissioner of Agriculture wants to destroy the second largest, outside of timber, the second largest ag commodity in the state of Florida. Wilton Simpson, the ag commissioner, wants to destroy. Granted, Ron and Wilton do not get along. So that's also part of this conversation. Welcome to the great state of Florida. And so it is going to be important that we get people that are in elected office that understand how to create this balance and to make sure that we are being the gold standard for the country of how to legalize cannabis, how to protect the hemp industry, and also how to protect the medical part of all of this. We've got so many doctors that have really invested a lot of time and research and energy to be those conduits for their patients, to answer the questions, and making sure that our MMTCs are still providing that type of knowledge and access for our patients. Like my mom, as most of and now my dad, unfortunately, are patients because of cancer. And I wanted to know that my parents can go into an MMTC and feel like they are still getting treated as a patient. And so we've got to make sure we're protecting all three buckets. And the only way that you do that is you have balance back in the legislature to push these initiatives and get that balance on the implementation of Amendment 3.
Now, there's one more player that involved the agricultural industry that had a lot to do with the almost banning of the hemp industry, and that is the agriculture senator, that being Ben Alberton. Now, how much was he involved in trying to move the hemp industry down? I mean, there was no infrastructure ever put together for all the herd and the mass that is the other part of the hemp plant. I put partly that on Ben Alberton because although he was major as far as agriculture legislation, he never moved anything for that, and I tried.
Yeah, no, and I think that's correct. I think that when we legalized hemp in 2019, and thank you again to Rob Bradley, who has been the champion for the plant for a very long time, and so they still put all of these guardrails on me in the Department of Agriculture to create the industry. It's the chicken and the egg theory. So many of our farmers weren't going to put seeds in the ground if there wasn't empires, and not allowing me to create the full wraparound industry has what has caused a lot of the industry to go completely to the human consumption and not so much to the industrial side, which we all know eventually is going to be the most lucrative part of the hemp plant. To your point, Gary, the hemp plant, one stalk of the plant has four different types of usages, between the bud itself for human and animal consumption, to the stalk, to the seeds, carbon sequestration, carbon credits. I mean, this is a miracle plant on so many different levels when it comes to the industrial side. And what Ben never got, I mean, I sat there and tried to lobby Ben and explain to him that in some of our even most toxic lands, Mosaic being front and center, that Mosaic could have the opportunity to put hemp plants on their land to take some of the toxins out of the land and put the land back into circulation. It was one of those issues that was just like too complicated for him to fully understand. And so he, again, was trying to just not understand the issue, or chose to not understand the issue. But you need forward thinking legislators who understand the agricultural components, understand the human animal consumption of it, but also understanding the environmental aspect of it and the industrial side. We in Florida can be the front and center when it comes to cannabis, the full plant, both for medicinal purposes, for the medicinal part, for the recreational part, and then for the industrial. It is a miracle plant in totality, but we need forward thinking legislators and regulators to put this ball forward again.
Now, I know that you can't stay long because you've got a few things to do. but before you go, what can the average person here in the state of Florida do to make certain that Florida is in not only just in play, but Florida actually does actually win, and we can change the legislature to the point where we can actually make certain that we have common sense legislation working for the people and not for the special interests.
So we got 30 days, folks. We got 30 days to make sure that we're bringing democracy and freedom truly back to the state of Florida. So one, tomorrow, by the end of the day, by end of midnight, you have the last chance to check that you are registered to vote and that you are actually registered. So go to iwillvote.com to double check that you are registered. Go request your vote by mail ballot, and certainly as this hurricane is coming, really important to make sure that you get your vote by mail ballot, because we never know what next week is going to hold. And then make sure that you make a plan. November 5th is the last time to vote. Early voting starts on October 21st. Mail-in ballots have been already sent. You still have until 12 days prior to the actual election to request your vote by mail ballot, return it, early vote, or actually day of. But make a plan. This election is so consequential to democracy, not just here in Florida, but across the entire country. We have been the lab rats of Project 2025 for the last 6 years under Ron DeSantis and the Republican Party. So it's really important to not only register to vote, to talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, go out and help candidates. There's a lot of incredible candidates that are out there, from school board races all the way to the U.S. Senate race. And to make sure that you are helping these candidates, if you got an extra couple of dollars, either to these candidates or floridadems.org, making sure that we've got all of our GOTV efforts. Sign up for phone banking, sign up for canvases, sign up to send text messages. My mother has been writing 5,000 postcards across the state of Florida. There is an opportunity for everybody who wants to get involved. And I'll leave you with this, Gary, and to the rest of the team. This is such an important election. I have a 15-year-old niece and a 12-year-old nephew, and I think about them every single day. That it's not about me, it is about them, making sure that they've got an environment that is going to be safe for them, that they can be safe in school, that my niece has access to reproductive health care, that we've got an educational system that backs up both of them as they go into future educational environments. I need to know that on November 6th, that I can wake up, and if either one of them turns to me and says, Auntie Nikki, what did you do in this moment to protect my rights and freedoms and democracies, that I have an answer to that question. And I hope that all of you have an answer to that question today. And if not, you've got 30 days to do everything in your power after you've made sure that your house is safe and that you're protected from this new hurricane. But you've got everything in your power. The power continues to remain in our hands. If you don't like what has been going on in our state, whether it's environment, hurricanes, it is property insurance, it's abortion access, it's unaffordability of our state, it's divisiveness and the rhetoric from Ron DeSantis and Republicans to Donald Trump to Rick Scott. If you are tired of all of this and to have a legislature that is finally going to listen to you, the power's in your hands. Go out and vote. Go out and get people to vote. This is the time that you have to put country before party. Even to those most staunch Republicans who've been Republicans their entire lives, that are third, fourth generation farmers that have been Republicans for their entire lives. This is a time to take back your power, take back your party, vote Democrat. You've got permission to vote Democrat this election cycle. And that way we can create balance back in Tallahassee and make sure we're creating balance in Washington, D.C.
Now, the Dems have been in favor of get out the vote, and this time they seem to be get more into suppress the vote on the other side. So, for those people who haven't voted in a while, you might not be registered to vote. And when is the last day to register to vote?
Tomorrow, October 7th. Tomorrow is it. Please make sure that you go to iwillvote.com, check out your voter registration status, because you're right, Gary. Last year alone, 880,000 Democrats were put on the inactive list. So really important to go and to check that your status is up to date, that you've requested your vote by mail ballot. And if you haven't registered to vote, that tomorrow is your last day to participate in the November 2024 election. Results are on us to do everything possible to turn out the vote.
Well, I know you won't have anything to apologize for come Yom Kippur, so I'm glad for that.
Oh,
Happy,
there's always something, Gary. You know that.
yeah, I had bad thoughts about orange people. Uh, Other than that, good luck. Good luck to you. Keep fighting the fight. I know you're our happy warrior on this side, and thank you for coming by.
Thank you,
Absolutely. Thanks,
Nikki.
everyone. And I'll see you on the other side of this election. Have a good day.
All right. So our
Uh,
next
I
our
just
next guest coming to us downside from the southwest central part of Florida, if you can call it that, uh, which also I believe includes the gypsum stacks that Mosaic put out there and created one of the largest toxic sinkholes we've had in our country, is in
Hmm.
your district, correct?
That's correct.
And this
That
is
is
Phil
correct.
Carter, who's running for as a state senate for that area. And we'll go over your district in a second, but uh, what 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 do you think we could do about the fact that we have companies that are not in our best interests ecologically?
Well, we obviously have to get, that's why I think people like just as myself, the regular guy that's coming in and seeing how this is affecting us out here, has to get into office and get educated on these issues so that we can create legislation that's going to minimize at the least, if not just completely end this. Because I mean, we've now got uh, fecal matter leaching out into our system up here when I was up in Charlotte County just yesterday. So we've got some real work to do.
And now you're military now, but you do have the jarhead do, but you're actually Air Force.
That's correct.
Okay, and there are issues. Isn't there an issue in the amendment this year, also in regards to the military?
So, I'm sorry, repeat that again. I'm having some difficulty here. I don't have a picture anymore. I'm getting a
We
lot
can
of.
still see you.
we can see you. We can hear you. We can see you.
It could be weather related because we have weather here in the state of Florida, but we 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 all have issues that regards in regards to veterans. First off, so many of them have come back as wounded warriors after deploying and things of that sort, after seeing things they cannot unsee, and yet the VA has been tolerating the use of cannabis, but not necessarily embracing it. And we're hoping that we can get some kind of legislation within the state that will make that somewhat easier for them to find alternate methods other than the VA, because Tri Health is not always there for you.
Uh oh. Yeah. No sound.
Oh yeah. Okay. We lost your sound, Ben. Sorry, not Ben. Sorry, wrong one. Phil, could you possibly log out and log back in again? That'll give you a better signal, and that'll give us a chance to go ahead and my berate Carlos for something. Now we do.
That's a shame. As soon as Phil started talking, he sat there all patiently while Nikki was speaking, and as soon as he started talking, you could
Yeah.
hear him.
All of a sudden.
Maybe it's on my end. Nah, it doesn't look like it.
Okay, then would be the both of us. You see, we are semi professionals, and Carlos is about as semi professional as you can get, guys.
I'm not. I'm a very professional person. I'm very informal, though.
Well, I was impressed with your photographs from this last week.
Well, thank you.
Those were excellent.
You see, that's where I fucked up. I should have uploaded the graphics. But
I'll give you time.
dude, I have to say, I mean, you're like moving along with the, like, we just spoke to Nikki Fried, and you're just like moving on about that. That, like, she is so cool.
Yeah.
I just love her. You know.
Yeah, I've known her since she was a lobbyist working for San Velasco Farms, which became Harvest, which was then bought by True Leave, I believe.
Um,
And they spit out because they already had a license. They spit out the license and they sold it to somebody else for some outrageous fee. But that was good because Harvest was a crappy dispensary. I'm not saying that True Leave is the best. You guys can make your own opinions. Don't make the opinions that well. As far as we're not big fans of True Leave for whatever reason, but it's our own personal issues, and you can have your own personal issues if you like. But our system is not the best. We have corporations that don't always follow the rules, and so therefore create product which is not good. And one of the things about having a good system of regulation is that it makes the product safer for the individual. Well, if the big guys aren't following the rules, then the regulation's not working, and therefore there has to be some kind of guardrails, hopefully within the legislature, to do something. They're always big on punishment, but they don't seem to be punishing the right folks, as far as that's concerned. Okay, Phil, do we have you back?
I can see and hear you guys now. So
yeah, you're all good.
And I can see you too, and that's not because of the medication I've been taking.
That's good. Well, what I was going to say before we got interrupted was obviously Nikki Fried put everything right into perspective, but I'm obviously a proponent of voting yes on Amendment 3 as well as 4, since we spoke about that. But with regards to legalization of marijuana, having worked in law enforcement myself, I say this all the time. I would 1,000 times rather pursue a citizen that's been smoking a little than deal with somebody that's been drinking our hard drugs. That's just one thing, one small perspective. But the freedom, I've always, it's bothered me all my life that people can go home and have a drink or go to a bar and have a drink, but they can't have a smoke of marijuana, which is actually more healthy for them in the first place. And again, like I said, creates less violent people. By legalizing, we also can ensure that the people that are receiving these products, and believe me, people are receiving these products, are getting safe products that are regulated. And then the last thing that we have to keep in mind, and I don't understand why anybody would ever argue about, is having that money generated, that tax revenue that can go to infrastructure and education and many other things. So there are a lot of reasons to do it. I understand why, and you guys mentioned the True Leave and the Republican Party saying that we should vote no on that aspect. But my sense would be to do the same thing that we've done and we've seen state to state, and that is you get the medicinal marijuana comes in, that it's just a matter of time usually before you're going to have the recreational weed. So here we've got the recreational weed coming. Once we get that legislation established, then we can move to the next step of making it so that people can do the home grow and do the things they want to do that are within the the confines of what our society will allow.
Now, I've been working on a bill for numerous years, and that is to try to make certain that people don't lose their job or don't get their job because of the fact they have a medical card, which
Right.
doesn't make any sense because if you have a job, you can be a tax-paying citizen and you can feel good about being a patriotic person of the community. But to have your medicine make it so you lose all that is absolutely insane. And that kind of narrows it on to the same situation I'm dealing with in regards to our first responders. Just like the military, they have seen things they cannot unsee. I can't tell you how many people who are first responders, both in law enforcement and medical and fire, who uh, they literally lose it after a certain point in time because there's so much the brain can handle.
Right.
And there are people who have retired who had to go back on work as resource officers and end up hurting themselves, their family, et cetera, et cetera. I've talked to Chad Chronister and other sheriffs, and they're saying, we're good. We have yoga, we have acupuncture, we have mindfulness. I don't see law enforcement and mindfulness necessarily meshing that well, but I would like to see that the first responders have a chance to use this medicine to maintain their PTSD and make them better first responder, because that's one thing we definitely need in this society is better first responders and not lesser.
Well, we see all the time with the violence on the ones that get so that take things too far. That's people that are not obviously mentally as stable as they ought to be if they're going to be out there doing that kind of work. So it's an excellent point.
I would hate to see a first responder lose their job because
Yeah.
they're trying to medicate themselves to make themselves well. And we have parents out there who also are suffering from various issues where they require to use medical cannabis, and yet the Department of Children and Family Services can take their kids away if they
Yes.
see that they're just using it just to get better. And face it, a sick parent is not necessarily the best parent. So therefore, if the parents are better, the kids are better, and if the kids like locking it up and unloading the gun,
Okay.
also locking up and making certain their kids don't have access to the medicine,
That's right.
things would be fine.
I remember a case I not exactly, but like 5-6 years ago, where I think we actually had them on the show when we were on the radio. There was like a couple here in Tampa Bay that it wasn't even about them having a medical card. It was that their infant child had cancer, and they wanted to use cannabis to help that child. And a judge was like, "Oh, you're going to give cannabis to this kid? Oh, we're going to take the kid away and give it to the state." And yeah, so they took this cancer child that's got to go through chemo to gave him to foster parents in order to go through chemo. And it's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, there's all this stuff going on in the state.
It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
I don't often speak about it, but I personally was diagnosed with PTSD after the military, and they recommended weed. Now, I will be honest with you. Up until the time that I got out of the Air Force, so I was 27 years old, I had never smoked marijuana. I wasn't even much of a drinker, didn't smoke cigarettes. And it wasn't because I was trying to be a good boy. It's because I didn't like the smell of the weed. I didn't like the smell of the cigarettes, and I didn't like the taste of liquor. So I never got into them. When I first tried marijuana, it was medicinal. It did help. I was able to actually finally sleep, because I previously couldn't sleep. So and then I also have a father who died of cancer. I'm so grateful that he was able to have that product at the time that, it was available for him. It's just, there's so many reasons why this should have been legalized long ago, but now is the time. We need to get this done. We need to be able to educate the people on all of the benefits and override some of this silly confusion that they're trying to create.
You spoil something that I like to do sometimes, where I like to ask the candidate if they ever tried marijuana. And I see them squirm a little bit, but you have no shame whatsoever. This is the medicine, huh?
No, I don't see. I think that's just a lie. We all know people who smoke marijuana, and they may go to work and be professional, never expect it. I don't go to work and smoke. I wouldn't, show up somewhere where I need to be and be under the influence of alcohol or marijuana. But if I'm at my home, just like Nika said, I want to be able to have the freedom to do what I want to do. And as long as I know better than to get into a vehicle or to do something that's reckless, I should have the same choice as a person who can drink alcohol and make those same lateral choices.
A lot of people can't understand that there might be cross links between various industries, and to say that the alcohol the agriculture industry is linked with the health industry sounds like a reach to some people, but in fact, a use of an agricultural product can be used in a medicinal way. And your opponent, Ben Alberton, has been great as far as trying to help out the farmers of the state and the agricultural situations. But
Right.
in regards to the hemp industry, he's had it wrong.
Yep.
And that's been an issue. He helped on helping to create the hemp industry, but he didn't do anything to put together a situation in regards to setting up an infrastructure for the use of the industrial products or the medical products for that matter.
And I suspect that's probably motivated by money and the fact that, what his party wants him to do rather than what he thinks is actually correct. Because from what I've, I don't want to get too much into speaking about it because I don't know the man. I've not met him. I've seen him in videos. I've looked at his voting record. He seems like a very decent man to me, but he's a party lines man. He's following the party line. So that's where the difference is, and that's where the struggle is. Otherwise, he might be making a different decision if you talk to him privately and you were walking, his nephew or something, along those lines.
Oh no, he's been great for the agriculture industry for many years in the state senate. But I think it's time that somebody goes in there that has that information that he has and adds to it.
Absolutely.
So in regards to dealing with other issues like you deal with vets and first responders, and even just the gun industry, we actually have a bill that does prevent people from not being able to have cannabis and a concealed carry.
Yep.
Because of the federal rule and regulations, we
Right.
feel that should not be an issue.
Right, and I don't see that's just wrong. I mean, that's just encouraging people that might go and use the medicinal to go and keep buying the stuff off the black market. And again, I think we need to discourage that because who knows what you're getting and what it's laced with these days. So.
Well, yeah, the folks in the black market, or I'm sorry, the legacy market, as they call it right now,
that's right.
They do tend to do things like package their ACE up at the same place where they're packaging up little packages of fentanyl, and you have dust in the air. And the dust in the air settles onto the cannabis, and so therefore, I wouldn't necessarily call it laced because that sounds more of an intentional thing. But the fact is, they have a product which is not pure.
Right.
And we are trying to regulate it. I think we do need to have those strips that make people know exactly whether the medication that they have actually has fentanyl in it or not, so they know whether to avoid it or not.
Right.
I know a family that was in Zephyr Hills that went to a bar, talked to a guy in the corner booth, and brought back some cannabis for the night. And by morning, they were all dead. Every single one of them.
Jesus Christ,
that's horrible.
And and I hear from the cannabis industry constantly that's a fallacy that they have fentanyl in the cannabis, and the fact is that it'll burn off anyway. It's not a matter of the burning. It's a matter of if you have that stuff on the leaves, if you pack your bowl, if you roll a pre-roll, you have it in your hands, you'll be licking your fingers. And as soon as that fentanyl gets to the oral mucosa,
Yeah.
you've just gotten dosed, whether you like it or not. And that's been the issue, and that's what we have to fight for. That's why we need to have pure medicine. That is one of the reasons why people would rather have home grow, so they can be absolutely certain that they
That's right.
have access to medicine that they know is not adulterated of
That's
any
right.
way, shape, or form. And we have a bill for that too. We couldn't do a ballot initiative. I mean, look, Trulieve, for all their inaccuracies, has put through $95 million into this thing.
Right.
Grant you, it's very self-serving for their point in time, but
Oh,
it
yeah.
shows you just how much it costs to get a ballot initiative on the ballot. Now, I should also say we've got 4 other amendments on this ballot,
Mhm.
at least on mine over here in Hernando, and a lot of people don't even know what those other ballot initiatives are. For some odd reason, 3 and 4 have taken up all the air in the space. And my lovely my wife said, "Oh, is there amendment 1 or 2?" I says, "There has to be an amendment 1 or 2. Otherwise, you couldn't
And then
have
there were
3 or
3 or
4."
4.
And 1, I'm not really concerned about. 2, I am concerned about, because it talks about using traditional methods to allow hunting. Now, what do they mean by traditional methods? I mean, yeah,
They're trying to get rid of a license, right?
when you throw out, I think they just mean more guns, more possibly even tainted bait as far as deer are concerned, or gill nets for the fish and things of that sort. And that's why it looks like a good bill, but the way it's written, it confuses the voters. And normally, the Supreme Court is supposed to get rid of things that don't really make sense, and that may confuse the voters. This one does. Have you had a chance to take a look at Amendment 2 as well?
I've been made familiar with it, and you're recapping it again for me. I know I'm a no vote. I'm a no vote. The only 2 things, as a matter of fact, out of all the amendments that I'm voting yes, that I would be voting yes on would be 3 and 4. Just the marijuana and the abortion. The rest would all be no votes, as I've looked at when I looked at all the amendments.
Yeah, we're talking about 5 is the homestead tax, and I forget what 6 is right now. But I mean, after they went ahead and tried to put through a ballot initiative saying that illegal migrants cannot vote. Well, dude, they've never been able to vote.
That's right. There's just so much. So I think what's happening is the Republican Party is making a real effort to feed off of ignorance. They really are. I mean, they're feeding off of the fact that people don't understand. Yeah, they don't understand the issues. They don't understand how the system works, and they don't understand who their candidates are and what they stand for. They don't have enough time when they start to get interested in it to actually dig into all these issues as deeply as they need to. And I'm one of those people. Until I joined this in last October, I was ignorant on a number of these subjects. The environment, I thought I knew a lot. I'm ignorant on weed, even though I thought I was intelligent about it. I was ignorant on abortion, no doubt. The things I've learned, but I've made the effort to sit down and get myself boned up on as many of these issues as I can because of what I'm doing. And most citizens, to include myself prior to this, wouldn't have been this deep. We would have just been listening to what we were getting for information on whatever media outlet that we listen to. And that's another part of the problem, is where the people are getting their information, whether it's
what was it? Did you just sit down and just decide that I'm gonna read up on this stuff, or was there something that influenced you to get more educated on these subjects?
But what influenced me was that if I'm going to be in office and I'm going to be having conversations with you guys and you're going to be asking me these questions, I'd like to have some idea what I'm talking about, at least on as many of them as I can. Like I said, I've been in interviews where there are subjects that I can't speak on right now intelligently, or at least not as intelligently as I want to. So I just simply defer and say, look, my belief is that my intent is, once I got into office, assuming that I did, I want to sound arrogant, but assuming that I assumed office, the first thing I would do would be to sit down and prioritize on what are the issues, what kind of staff do I have, what kind of resources do I have, what are the priorities for my 5 respective counties, and then start educating myself really, drilling down on those top priority issues and all those issues so that I can have town halls, social media events, interviews, and do all those things and discuss that the year throughout, not just, be in legislation for 3 months and then go on vacation or whatever it is they do. I don't know what they do, but I want to stay out there and stay active. I'm not trying to be insulting. I really don't know what they do. So some of this will be a lesson for me. I'm a new candidate. I never saw myself going into politics. I really never did. I got tired of seeing on the TV as I was dealing with my parents. I was sitting in hospitals watching the TV, watching the news, and every day just getting more and more and more frustrated, with the caliber of the people that are in, with the. I have friends from Indiana and Illinois. They call me, and this is the truth, and this was touched on earlier. People, what they say is they're tired of the nastiness, but the other big thing they say is they're tired of being confused. They don't know what to believe. They're really where do I get the proper information? How do I figure out who's telling me the truth, Phil? And I tell them all the time, the only thing I can say, and maybe you guys have a better answer, is you've got to vary your media sources. You've got to look at CNN and BBC and ABC, NBC. You've got to look at your social media and find where the common denominators are and find what's really making sense, and then back that up with facts if you really want to know. The other part of the problem, though, here is that when you're trying to have these common sense or these, I would try to say intelligent conversations, these people don't want this information. They don't want to know this. They want to believe what they believe because it's easier to believe a lie than it is to believe the truth, which is a little more complicated. So there are a number of depths to all of this, and how we go about dealing with this. And the main thing to me is how we can establish relationships with the other side, and then how we can insist. My thing is, I'm going to be in their screen. We're going to write some legislation. We're going to do something. We're going to get something done for the people, not just fight back and forth. If I had to give you 5 things to get one this time, let's do it. And I know that's going to scare some people, but I'm not going to give away the house. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we've got to do something to move forward in getting a little more balance to the center and getting what the people need.
Well, the polls right now show that Amendment 3 is polling out at about 62%, which is kind of iffy because you have to have 60% for this to pass as a constitutional amendment. And that's in part why it takes 95 million practically to put it out there. And so we appreciate you taking it real. I mean, political candidates are not the new version of Stephen Hawking. They're real folks who have a skill set and an intelligence set based on their own experiences and things of that sort. And so I say, look at the candidates, take a look at their experience, take a look at their skill set, and know that if there's something they don't know, they're willing to talk to you and find out what the situation is. And we're out there for all the candidates who want more information on any of the subjects that we've been talking about here. We can give you information. So if you have any questions and you want to go talk about your constituents, we have that available. And that's to you and to everybody else. So we appreciate you bringing that up because candidates need to be educated. They also need to know that in this day and age, you have to have some kind of bipartisan push in order for anything to really be achieved, unless you have a supermajority. Oops. Right now, we actually do have a supermajority here in Florida, but we're hoping to change that and get to a more bipartisan view because I think that will be better for the entire people. Now, Carlos and I are, I would say, politically fluid. I mean, he tries to appease his parents as much as possible, who are part of the Cuban right. I love you, Poppy. What can I say? Argue with Carlos. Don't argue with me.
It's funny. I mean, going back to having Nikki on the show, that's when she got arrested. He sat me down and was like, you know what? I like her. I was like, that's really strange, Dad, because like I guess nobody's told you to hate her yet.
Well, like I said, I haven't started this in October, seeing the demeanor and the attitude of the people when I first started to now. There are a lot of support for people to hear. There's a real optimism here. Like you said, state in play now. I really believe we are a state in play because when I was talking to people in the beginning, I was being called everything from a baby killer to not my country, to not loving my flag, to being a pedophile. I mean, literally just people that never met me saying those comments. And we know those are talking points. But now I get when I'm approaching people, I'm actually talked to civilly. They actually listen a little bit. They're interested in why you feel the way you do. And I've had people say to me, and it's probably more, again, I've said this before, more leaning toward women that I talk to. But hey, I'm not voting for that party. I'm not voting for that guy. And they're talking about, the orange god. So I think there's a lot of optimism. I think a lot of people's eyes are being opened, even on the Republican side. I think it's very encouraging that people like Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and all those that are coming out from the Republican Party are coming forward now. I think people paying more attention are getting more sensitive to what's going on and realize the depths of the danger we have here if we don't do the right thing in this particular election, because it is very important.
Now, you come from I call a blue wall state, because that's one of the things we're talking about. You come originally from Illinois,
Yes.
and we know that there, like, for instance, in Indiana, people are voting for the color of the guy's skin that matches their sky over in Gary, Indiana. For those of you who know about Gary, Indiana, they have beautiful orange skies in the day and at night.
That's right.
That may have affected their thinking. I know it definitely affected Michael Jackson somehow. But, but the bottom line is you got a lot of Midwestern values and things of that sort that you brought down to Florida. We greatly appreciate that. And we want to know what districts your district entails, so we know who can actually vote for you. And then we want to discuss for a bit before you got to go what your platform is. What are your major strengths?
Sure. So my area is basically Lee County, the northern portion of Lee County, which includes North Fort Myers and then across to Babcock Ranch, some portions of Lehigh Acres. And it was redistricted this recently, the last cycle. Then it goes to Charlotte County, to DeSoto County, to Hardy County, and then the southern half of Polk County. So the three counties in between are 100% covered. Polk is the southern half, and Lee is the very northern portion. And then as far as my platform, the things I speak about the most passionately are typically common sense gun legislation, having carried an M16 and a GAU, both at 9 mils, 38, and been an armorer in the Air Force and carrying those weapons every day that I was on duty. I recognize the depth of danger they present to our local law enforcement officers who are out there. I would be petrified today if I was a law enforcement officer and knew that most times in situations like that, I'm going to come up against superior firepower until we can get other services here, and I could get killed. And a lot of other people get killed in that circumstance. But with regards to, with gun legislation, the first thing that people think immediately is that I'm talking about taking back guns or taking away guns. And I cannot emphasize enough how much I want to say I'm not interested in taking anything away, taking anything back. What I'm talking about is tightening up the red flag laws, which would have helped us in this situation. Most recently in Georgia, where the young man was literally telegraphing and writing in emails that he was thinking about doing a school shooting. So his dad ends up for Christmas buying him an assault weapon, and he goes out and kills 4 people. Now, we've got to have some common sense. That's where the red flag laws would have come into effect. We can limit our magazine capacity. We shouldn't have those types of weapons out on the street in the first place, in my opinion, when we're talking about automatic weapons. And I've had people take it so far as, well, a person ought to be able to have a GAU or a tank. We have rules in society, just like we have a speed limit. And this is how I always say this. You can't do 75 in a 30 because it's not safe. It's the same thing with a tank. We can't have tanks running around on our streets in our neighborhoods. It just makes no sense. That I have to take it that far is just ridiculous to me, but I've had that discussion. So, tightening up on those types of things, I think educating, we've got, when we hand somebody a weapon, we ought to have a 4-hour course that they have to take online with regards to weapon safety. When I handle a weapon in the military and law enforcement, you learn clearing procedures, how to take your weapon apart, how to put it back together, what its capacity, what its range was, what was going to happen if you pulled that weapon. I think we need to have that kind of education for people that are going to have a weapon. If we're going to have everybody just able to run around and carry concealed, or it's just dangerous to me. Mental health is an issue with regards to that as well. So there's gun legislation. The other two things that I speak primarily about are the environment and education. Like I said, I've been a teacher in the schools down here, a substitute teacher, I should say, for Kelly Education down here in Lee schools. And what I've seen is a lack of good education, lack of a good curriculum, things being taken away, such as books. I went to a school board meeting, and there was a gentleman there getting the Apple Award, which is a prestigious award for them, for a teacher, for what they do. And he got that award that night after 30-something years of meritorious school service. And he said, unfortunately, when he gave his speech, I resigned today because they came in and took all of my books out of my classroom. So we've got the issue with education. And I'm not talking about just education K through 12, but I'm talking about educating our people, preparing them for careers. If they don't want to go, if they're not the type of person who wants to go to college, let's have an option for them to be in a trade school or for the military and have them prepared for that, or at least thinking about that. And then environment, like I said, was the other one, the big one. We've got so many issues with water quality, water rising, overbuilding, all of those things. And then there's so many other issues. Again, the cost of housing, insurance fraud. There are many issues, and so for me to say, well, these are the ones that I care about. The top 3 were those ones that I mentioned because those are the ones I've educated myself the most on so far. But I know the other ones are equally important to other people, and I'm going to have to educate myself on them and advocate for those as well. So there are a lot of things that we need to be doing that we're just not getting done. And that's what I'm talking about. We need to go in. And I don't think that we should just have 3 months. Maybe we need to be in there for 6 months if we're not getting anything done until we get some legislation enacted. So as you can see, there are a lot of things on my mind that we need to do, but it's just a matter of me getting in there and being able to do them.
Well, I appreciate you going after the gun situation. I'm trying not to make too much fun of a tragic situation, but if you got a guy who accidentally kills a woman while cleaning his gun, obviously this guy did not deserve the right to have a gun if he didn't figure out that the first thing you do when you clean your gun is you make sure there's no ammunition in it.
I would hope so. Well, that's what I'm talking about. People don't have people are being handed weapons that they've never even. We went to when you got handed a weapon in the military, the armor, and I was the armor. You would hand that weapon up you would show them the sight so they could see that the breech was clear. Show them the other side that it was on safe, and then you hand them that weapon. They go to a clearing barrel. They put it in the clearing barrel, clear that ejector 3 times, show it as safe and clear, and then they proceed to put their magazine in and go out and go on duty. And then if they go back when they come in, they do the same thing. A lot of emphasis goes on pointing away like it's low. All of these are basics to somebody like me or somebody whose dad or parents maybe taught them respect for weapons for hunting and stuff. But a lot of kids today, I'm afraid I'm going to tell you, they don't have these basics. So that's why I say the education, something as simple as a 2 or 4 hour course to make them aware of what they're handling and what they're doing.
Let me ask you a question, Phil. When you're handling a Glock, right? Is it better? Like, does it shoot better if you hold it sideways?
No, that's the Clint Eastwood style, but no. And the funny thing is, people don't realize that. For police officers and military, when we pull a weapon, if we actually are jacking around and we're actually pulling our weapon, it's to kill you. We're going to shoot for center mass to take you out. It's not to injure you or something like that. I think that's what people need to understand. These are lethal weapons. They're meant to kill. So when we're handing them to people like a kid that's 15 years old, I couldn't get a BB gun at 15 years old. I had to be 16 before I got a BB gun. And I'll be honest with you, the first thing I did with that BB gun, I went up to my second bedroom window. Me and my cousin had a fight from across the street. He was in the other yard, and I shot him literally right between the eyes with a pellet. So I didn't have my BB gun for a while. So I learned right away as a young kid, these are dangerous weapons. That was just a BB gun. So think about that, and I think about that. I don't want to turn on the TV again and see that another kid has walked into a school and shot X number of kids and teachers. And the environment it creates in the school, it's just not good.
On the other hand of things, it sounds like you were a good shot from the beginning.
Well, I did have this. I had a scope on that 760 Crossman, very accurate. And I don't know how I got in there, but I put it right between his eyes.
And for those of you guys who don't know, handguns don't necessarily have telescopic sights, but they do have this little notch on the top, which you're supposed to use as a sight. So if you're holding it sideways, you're not looking through the sight, dude. You're just basically shooting at an area, not necessarily at a person. So therefore, you might miss.
That's just,
and you might get shot after that because if you're in a situation. But just saying it, that's where the movies don't quite manage with reality.
No. Phil, there's a story that Gary likes to tell here, and I think it relates, and I'm going to try to do it justice. This was the precursor to Reefer Madness. Now Gary knows what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But there was a time here in Ybor City when there was a family here, a prominent family called the Lacatas. And there's a building across the street, a couple streets down. Also, there's a Lacata building. And actually right across the Lacata building down the is their old house. And Victor Lacata basically the Tampa Bay Times wrote an article about how he smoked a joint and killed his whole family, and they blamed it on the joint. Now, there's a lot of different stuff to talk about here. You know, he had a history of dementia. His family had a history of dementia. I believe he was off his meds, right, Gary? Yeah, there's a lot of different things to talk about here. But this was one of the first cases of yellow journalism when the media went and took a story and formed it to say, hey, marijuana is bad. I think about that story because like that story of you get the feeling he smokes a joint, he goes crazy, he grabs an axe, he starts fucking on this murderous rage, right? But in my head, it's quite the opposite. I think if he had smoked the joint before this situation, there would be less of a chance that he'd murder his whole family.
I just say that I think if the Menendez kids were smoking, they probably wouldn't have shot their kids.
Well,
I'm just saying.
To go into all these theories that we have, what is your opinion, right? You're somebody who's consumed cannabis. You're a veteran. You're a former cop, right? You've dealt with people who have smoked weed, right? As a police officer, right? Do you think if more people consume cannabis, there would be less violence?
I think with regards to those people who get violent when they drink, if they switched it to marijuana, there would probably be less violence if you looked at it from that respect. So I think there are probably a number of variables that could be brought up wherein that would be true. Because I mean, my experience with anybody in law enforcement or just in my regular life for that matter that smoke, they're not people that are typically wound up or tight or tense or trying to get loud and obnoxious. They're usually more calm and sedated. And they're more looking for the next snack or a couch to sit down and watch a TV program rather than go out and harm somebody. So, you know, it's whereas alcohol and other drugs can have much different results. I mean, there are drugs that you can take that, and I can't remember all the drugs that there were, but I know back in the day, you could get on something and literally you could be shot or hurt, tased, and it wouldn't affect you. You know, you would be even more aggressive if you use those techniques on a person like that. So that's again where with educating even our law enforcement, it's educating them on what types of protective measures they use and how those protective measures are going to be applied and how they're going to affect the person that they're using them on, such as a taser with somebody that has a heart condition or, you know, medicine and so forth. So
in the juncture between law enforcement and gun regulation, do you see adult use cannabis being more accessible to making police better and more efficient at their jobs? Number one, because they're not going after possession, and number two,
less confusing. Yeah,
they don't have people on PCP and that kind of situation to deal with.
That's right. I think you take that out of the equation, you make a law enforcement officer a lot easier. I'm going to be honest with you, the times that I came across people that had marijuana, if they were honest, which most of the time they were, I mean, it was obvious, I could just take the marijuana and stomp it into the ground and say, okay, go on about your day. You know, because you're talking an hour or two of paperwork. And if they had enough, you might even have to take them to jail. It's just not, it wasn't violent enough for me. And 90% of the time, like I say, it was easier enough to say, if I throw this out, you're gonna have a problem with that or make any issue of it. And back, I don't know that I would do that today. It's a different time today, but back then that was the stance that most of us would have taken. I know I did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I guess, Carlos, go ahead and do the bit about how do you find out how to help you and all that bit, because you do that great.
The first thing I would like to ask you, who's that behind you? Is that your son?
No, that's a buddy of mine. He's just a buddy of mine. We're going to go do some work.
I thought I saw him smoking a joint and watching football.
Daddy! He's always wanted to be on. Now I think he's
change my diaper. Is he smoking weed back there?
No, he's doing the other thing. He's drinking.
Oh, okay. Well, have a good time drinking and watching football, Phil's son.
Absolutely. Well,
so Phil,
I
want to thank you for coming on today. You know, one last thing we want to do with you today, say whatever you need to get off your chest. I know I just cut you off, but you know, take some time, look in the camera, and tell people who you are and how they can get a hold of you, how they can help you.
So again, I'm Phil Carter, running for State Senate District 27. I've told you that the district is all the way from Port Charlotte. I'm sorry, from Polk County all the way down to Lee County. I'm the common sense candidate. I'm just one of the people that have been out here with you as a citizen. I'm very interested in getting in and serving the public. One thing that I would like to say that I say to everybody is to be nice. If we're nice and we treat people nice, we get treated in kind. So let's just be a little nicer to each other. Let's try to be a little more civil, and let's go make something happen out there.
Wonderful.
And again, because like you're going up against Ben Albritton, I have to say this: if you guys care about the hemp industry, you need somebody out there who's not going to be working lock and step with Wilton Simpson to destroy that industry in the legislature. Because although he's the commissioner of agriculture, he has to have the legislature help him with doing what he's doing. Having Phil in there instead of Ben will make a big difference in regards to how that industry survives. That's one of the reasons I had him on today. So there you go.
And I thank you, gentlemen, both of you, for having me on. It's been educational and awesome.
Yeah, it's been a great show. Thank you so much for being on.
And we got to do our commercials here, but thank you again. Good luck. I know you got to do some canvassing again today. Everybody has to do canvassing at noon.
Right.
So best of luck to you. Hope to see you again after the election in the victory fine.
Thank you very much, guys.
And you do have our endorsement, just so you know.
Yes, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day.
Enjoy the football.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Now this is October, and although it's also the election year, it's also damn hurricane season. It's also Halloween season, and that's the time where all the good people on the city get all the big candy bars for the good boys. And if you're really really good, you get a chance to get some of their stash, right? No, it doesn't ever happen. It doesn't ever happen. People do not give away cannabis on Halloween to kids. I'm sorry.
Have you seen that news report yet?
Oh no, what's the new one?
No. I'm asking you if you've seen this news report.
No, but it always happens every Halloween. Talk about when I was a kid, us boomers, we had to worry about razor blades in the apples, right?
Yeah.
Now they don't even give away apples, let alone razor blades.
Never got an apple for Halloween,
or a razor blade for that matter,
or a razor blade.
Yeah, but nowadays they're saying, oh yes, they're giving away cannabis. I don't know if you ever saw that one Everyone Loves Raymond episode where the guy who accidentally gave out what he thought were chocolate coins were actually condoms.
Yo, there was this thing on YouTube that I saw where like these people were getting married and they like dosed the entire like wedding party with edibles. And they got in big trouble. Like the cops came and like, but it was just so funny when the cops were walking up on their camera. And they're like, "Hey, are you the bride?" And she's like, "Yeah."
And just so you know, Jerry Garcia's wedding, he did have cannabis in the coleslaw. That's not an urban myth. That was true.
Okay, so we live in Florida, right? So we have this medical marijuana system, but we also have what many refer to as the trap, right? And if you go to say the trap for some marijuana, right, you're gonna get charged for it. And if you're giving that candy away, you're putting weed in the candy, you're giving that shit away for free. You're gonna be spending thousands of dollars, dude. Like people who give away, who are that crazy, will not spend that much money. They're just financially impossible to do so.
Absolutely. And we have the best way to celebrate Halloween as opposed to stocking up on cannabis to put in all the candy, and that is our Halloween event, which I think Carlos wants to talk about.
Oh God!
No, not that one. That one. There we go. See, it's Carlos' photography, by the way. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you very much. We had a little photo shoot for the event. And, I'll talk about the photo shoot to promote the event. You see this flyer that we have here, the Halloween costume contest. We have these 4 lovely models. They're all wearing Halloween costumes, and they're going to enter the Halloween costume contest, right? And who will win? I don't know. Maybe you will decide. But in addition to our Halloween costume contest, we wanted to make this flyer too, because we're going to have live body painting there, and we wanted to promote that. So the models, thank you to all the models that participated in the photo shoot. This model's name is Jasmine. We've got a number of models here that I'm not going to say all their names, but on October 26th at 8 p.m., let me get rid of the ticker there. so we could see it. It's at Dignitary Cafe. Now, if you guys are familiar with Dignitary Cafe, it's owned by a former Buccaneers player named Ian Beckles. He's on the Drew Garabo show. He's also, has his own football podcast. And Dignitary Cafe is a very popular South Tampa place to go drink Kava Kratom or get your Delta 8, get your hemp products, and honestly, just hang out. Like, this guy has it set up basically as like this awesome lounge. So we're going to have vendors out in the back. We're going to have places to hang out inside. We're going to have DJs going on. Ian actually said that he would DJ a little bit. We're going to have live body painting. We're going to have music. We're going to have a costume contest. And here's the best part, Gary. Free to attend. You can literally go there. Yeah, you can either lace all your Halloween candy with thousands of dollars of weed, or not spend any money and come to the Halloween costume contest.
See, that when I was a kid, if you had a football player doing an event, you have a punt, pass, and kick contest. But I don't think Ian's going to do that way.
He was like defense, right? He's like a big guy.
Yeah, so it's like,
so he might try to tackle you.
You can't knock down the refrigerator, right?
So, you excited, Gary?
I am absolutely excited. I mean, this is one of my favorite events of the year for you guys. I mean, and again, all the proceeds, although admission is free, all the proceeds from the body painting and everything else go towards helping to legalize it in a understandable and clear method, so that people get access to the medicine they need, or the recreational product that they need, or adult use mix, as we always call it that. And you can be a part of the solution as opposed to them who are part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say who them are, but I can tell you they're not eating cats and dogs.
Republicans.
Okay? No, we're often, Carlos and I get this all the time. Why is it you only have Democrats on? We don't always have Democrats on.
Yeah, what are you talking about? We had that fucking guy that I forgot his name, but he's that guy that's a Republican.
Joe Gruters was on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. He had an excellent debate the other day, actually, that was up against a doctor who I call Jessica Rabbit. Now I can't forget her real name. But the fact is, she is a prohibitionist doctor who puts out all sorts of fake facts and things of that sort, or skews various studies from the past to make it seem as if the amount of psychosis in this country is increasing because of access to cannabis, which is just not true. And Joe just took her to he took her lunch. Let's put it that way. So we thank Joe for being a common sense legislator, and yes, he is GOP. So that's it. We're talking about issues. We're not talking about necessarily people. But I can't stand folks who stand on fake facts like we can change hurricanes to make them hit certain areas.
And like you were saying, like, I'm sure this lady that was debating Joe had like all the same talking points, like gateway theory. You're going to do drugs. You're going to go broke. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I remember Simmons saying something about how he was just, I'm out of control, and you got to be careful. I appreciate a Republican that has common sense legislation. And thank you, Joe.
And if you are part of the GOP who wants to come on the show, you are welcome to come on. There is no issues we have any problems with you coming on. We've had Nancy Mace on, who is one of the most conservative members of the Congress over in D.C., and she showed some common sense legislation in regards to federal legalization.
That's music. I'm playing music.
That's the solution. So, and we've had independents on. We had Joe Hanush on the other day. We love the libertarians because they are free thinking, and they don't. The party can't tell them exactly what to think, which I think is absolutely wonderful. Because that way you don't have people who are going against their own beliefs because it's the party line they have to follow. And that's part of the issue I have with the GOP. But I basically am independent. Carlos basically, like I said, is politically fluid. We do for the candidate, not necessarily the party, but we were happy to have Nikki on to go ahead and spell out what the stakes are right now.
Yeah, I'm a Democrat now.
You make your parents so unhappy.
I am a Democratic socialist. Sorry.
But in the meantime, guys,
Sorry, Mom.
we do have Milton coming on. It is going to plow through the west side of the state, go straight through Disney World, stop by, say hi to Mickey, and then take out Daytona Beach on the way out. So be careful. If you're told you have to evacuate, God damn it, evacuate.
Yeah,
Remember
leave.
that life is so much more important than things. Things you can always get back to an extent at least, but you can't necessarily get back yourself.
I'm not entirely sure that right now everybody's predicting that it's going to hit us dead on. I'm not entirely sure or convinced of that. However, I think we should prepare. And Pinellas got rocked by
All right.
that last
Those people
hurricane.
who actually can control the hurricane,
If you
would you
need to
mind?
get out of Pinellas, please get out of Pinellas County.
Yeah, I would think that if we could control the hurricanes, we'd send it back to Texas where it was coming from, and knock out
Oh,
Governor
that'd be
Abbott.
so
But I'm
good
just saying.
if we could control the hurricanes and we just like pointed them at Republican states that we don't live in.
No, we don't wish harm on anybody. We just want it to go out into the Atlantic and die off somewhere on the way to Newfoundland. That would be the best thing. But we have to find out a way to get it go around Florida now. And I don't think it's going to do that. So be careful, prepare, and we do have another show already set up for you for next week with two House representative candidates, and they will be on, and hopefully you will be here too. And in the meantime, we hope our executive director Chris is feeling better. Chinese takeout in Maryland can be deadly, so be careful of that. In the meantime, guys,